Welcome back. It is Wednesday, October 22nd. Week 8 of the NFL season is upon us. Colts and Titans' first repeat opponent here coming up Sunday, 4:25. Colts and Titans. Nothing says nice little AFC South matchup like that. Eddie Garrison, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Why is this game at 4:25?
So I get this question a lot this week. I believe, assumption here. First off, most bye weeks of any week in the NFL. I think we have 6 teams on byes.
Yeah, it's bye Mageddon, right?
So you gotta slot somebody in the 4 o'clockers.
Pray for your fantasy teams out there.
Yes. Well, mine is already done. So you got 3 4 o'clock games. In May, could you have talked yourself into Cam Ward versus Anthony Richardson if you're a TV network? Maybe. Again, we're stretching it, but somebody's got to be in the 4 o'clock window. So I guess that's a little bit of reason why. I think Denver, Dallas maybe is the other one. And then there's only one game on Fox, like Saints, Bucks, maybe something like that. So it's not great. But nonetheless, 4:25. And the other weird thing, Eddie, too, with how the schedule is, I do think the Colts are benefiting from facing Cam Ward twice in the first 2 months of the season.
Oh, 100%.
I would not want to see a rookie quarterback. And, remember how Drake May's, rookie season kind of got a lot better last year? I would not want to see that kind of week 14, week 15. And then the other thing, too, is if you look at the home slate, it's been a very front-loaded home schedule. They won't, after Sunday, they won't play another home game until November 30th. That is the Houston Texans. And that's the only home game between Sunday and the Monday of Christmas. So the Colts have a very road Germany schedule coming up here. I believe of their final 9, I want to say only 3 are at home, 5 road, and then the 1 neutral site game. But yeah, San Francisco is that December 22nd game on a Monday night. So when you look at the schedule here, it's it's at Pittsburgh, in Germany against Atlanta. You go bye week, then you go to Kansas City. You do have the home game with Houston. Then I believe it's back-to-back trips of Jacksonville and Seattle before you have that Monday nighter against the 49ers. So definitely we'll get a lot of road games or just outside of Lucas Oil Stadium for the Colts.
Let's start with the news items with today's podcast, Kevin. Now, before we get to actual injury report stuff, players out on the field, I want to start here. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter, especially on this podcast, but within the sports media landscape here in general in Indianapolis about, the trade deadline and, the Colts, do you make a move at edge? Do you make a move for cornerback? Yesterday, there was a meeting between Max Crosby and the front office that they will not be shopping or listening to offers on him, so that's a player that's off the board. You still believe that edge rusher is the number one priority or should be the number one priority for the Colts?
Yes.
At the deadline over cornerback?
Yeah, I do. I know Joel Erickson, we had him on the show on Tuesday. He went corner. Now, both of them are premium positions, and I think both could use an upgrade. But if you had to make me pick one, I'll go edge. I'll probably expand a little bit on that because I think we got a really good Twitter question. I forget who it was from, but kind of pushed back on I think it's a little overblown. Some of the pass rush, disagreement or, wanting more out of that group, however you want to define it. So I'll probably wait till that. But yeah, you're 13 days away from the deadline. Teams can change in a lot here in 2 weeks. But I will stick by that. Obviously it's been a quiet week, trades with the NFL this week. But as we inch closer, we'll see how that goes. November 4th, that Tuesday there. So that's right before you go to Germany.
That's right. We did get some injury updates today for the Indianapolis Colts. The 21-day practice window for Jalen Jones has officially been open. So starting there, Kevin, I believe Shane Steichen was asked today about just the ramp-up period for Daniel Jones, and he almost hinted at the fact that he may be ready to go in case they need him to play every snap on Sunday.
Yeah, and the one thing about the old injury window is, I think what you can do, you can ramp him up pretty aggressively off to the side. On injured reserve, you can get going, get as close as you can. And then obviously, practice matters. And, yes, there is a step up. But, with the ability to have a guy on injured reserve, you can kind of cheat the 21-day window, I guess, is what I'm saying. You don't need the full amount of those 21 days. Now, we should note with Jones, soft tissue and multiple months. And that's plural. Remember, he's aggravated this injury already once. So I would think that you would want to be extra cautious. But, yeah, I think that's a fair vibe. Now, there is part of me that looks at this opponent on Sunday and thinks, how much do you want to rush it? Now, you can look at it two ways. Hey, what a great opportunity for him to get fourth quarter reps. Or you could sit here and say, well, let's look at Pittsburgh. Let's look at Atlanta. Okay, DK Metcalf here. Okay, Drake London there. Those with Javarius Ward still out, of course, because we know Ward will be out for those games. Are you a little patient there? We'll get more to this when we get to the Titans, but I did kind of have to laugh today. I forget which Colts player said this, but they said something to the effect of, it would mean the world to them to knock us off. They're not wrong, I think, in that statement.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if I've ever heard an NFL player say that. I mean, usually this league is defined with parity. That's a comment that, the Alabama football player says about McNeese State coming to play them for homecoming. Or, the Georgia football player says that about Samford coming to play them. So I had to laugh at that. Again, you are a 14-point favorite. We'll get more into this here upcoming. But, yeah, I think obviously great news on Jalen Jones. I've always been pretty high, I think, on Jalen. I would like to see him get an outside look as a starting corner whenever he's healthy.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what Lou Anarumo does with him, just because from the jump, it just seemed like he wasn't an Anarumo guy. They draft, why am I forgetting his name now?
Yeah, Justin Wally.
Thank you, Justin Wally, and Wally was automatically what it looked like to be ahead of Jalen Jones, despite the fact that Jones has already played on Sundays, and you've seen success from him against NFL players, and you haven't
played well.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that too. And again, I've said this before, I don't think he's just played well for a 7th-round pick. I think he's been a nice corner. And also, I'd throw one more, too, in there, Eddie. I felt like they then skipped him over for Xavier Howard.
I was getting ready to go to that, yeah.
And that, honestly, that one kind of bothered me, just because I really felt like Jalen has kind of earned to be up next on the old depth chart. But, handled everything beautifully today, and just speaking to the media, and I'll be curious to see how he impacts, and obviously how quickly he impacts.
Other injury updates today on Wednesday from Shane Steichen. Samson Ebukam is dealing with a knee injury. He is week to week. Tyquan Lewis injured his groin against the Chargers in their win on Sunday. He is listed currently as day-to-day. Wide receiver Josh Downs, who is in the NFL's concussion protocol, was at practice today, but he was in that red non-contact jersey. Fellow wideout Ashton Dulin dealing with a chest injury, practice today as well. We don't know the full status, if those are limited participants or full participants. Jalen Jones was back on the practice field. Kenny Moore and Braden Smith did not practice today, but on the Braden Smith front of it, Kevin, we probably fully anticipate that was just like a injury management or a rest day for Braden.
Yeah, again, sometimes you get the injury report as we record this pod, so maybe we can update that a little bit later. Kenny, we saw him rest on Friday. And he actually played more than I thought he would. He played 60 snaps, a pretty big number, given the fact that he had missed so much time. So he was out, present at practice, not practicing, but was present. So we'll await kind of official word on, hey, is he now in the Wednesday rest crew? The Colts have opted for, this week was, I think, the first time Steichen has given them Monday off. So maybe we're kind of approaching the old, walkthrough on Wednesdays. Could that be on the horizon for them? Maybe it's a post-bye week thing. But yeah, let's kind of group the injuries together. Whiteout, good news. Josh Downs, red jersey, but still good. Ashton Dulin, back. So, healthy pass-catching group. What does that mean for A.D. Mitchell, for those that care? That's probably something to keep an eye on. Defensive end, that's where you added Seth Coleman to the practice squad yesterday. He was a local pro day guy from Illinois. They did work out Shaquille Barrett. We should probably note that.
Good call.
Certainly
Super Bowl champion.
Right, and I think he led the league in sacks, I thought, in 2019, I'm pretty sure, on that. And, two-time Pro Bowler. Now, was one of these retiree, unretire, a couple times last offseason. So, really hasn't played football in about 2 years, meaningful football. So the Colts have injuries right now on the defensive line. Ebukam had a brace on that right knee today. So, I think the assumption there is when you hear week to week, probably means multiple games. Tyquan Lewis day to day. So maybe it's just 1 week for him. We'll see. He didn't practice today, but you know what that means? JT Tuimoloau out of time.
Yeah.
Just a huge, huge opportunity coming up. You would think he's the third end behind Latu, behind Pay. Obviously, we'll see about Tyquan the rest of the week. We'll see if they bring up Durrell and Chami off the practice squad as kind of that extra defensive end. This probably is a game. I'm trying to think back to week 3. I believe it was a game where they dressed more D tackles than I think ends. I would assume that would be the case again. Like Tennessee, and we can get to Tennessee's injury report because it's lengthy right now.
Yeah, I've got some stuff, yeah.
And it's notable. But one thing to note, before we transition is if there is one area, is this the trap game? If there's one area that they're different than from week 3 positively, could be their run game.
Really?
The fact that Tajay Spears is now back.
Yeah.
Him and Pollard doesn't sound like he practiced today, but, Pollard and him is kind of a 1-2 punch. Their O-line, I think, is bad in general, but they also were dealing with backups in there in week 3. Maybe they're a little healthier. I think J.C. Latham, and we'll see about Kevin Zeitler for Sunday. Those were the two that missed that week 3 matchup. So, again, it's just more of a D-tackle game for you there. But I think that's everything on the injury front for the Colts, unless there's something that we see here that's, a bit alarming. Outside of that, we can probably transition. I wrote something on the website of just, Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones. These are two quarterback nerds, or I should say football nerds, not even quarterback nerds.
We talked about it on Monday's pod.
Yeah, and they're just obsessive. And you look at the numbers right now, and, talking to Shane today a little bit more about it, something that I think stands out to him and also stands out to me is just the overall balance. Like, when you're on a heater like this, okay, when do you get humbled? The NFL always humbles you. When do you get humbled? Or how could you get humbled is probably the better way to put it. But right now, if I was like, what if Jonathan Taylor comes back to earth? Well, I mean, good luck defending the Colts pass.
Yeah.
What if Daniel Jones comes back to earth? Well, good luck defending the run game. It's not one guy. There's great balance to the group. I mean, what's the biggest catch game any player's had? Has any player had 8 catches this year? 9 catches this year?
Pittman's probably had a game. Did Pittman just have a 7-catch game?
I feel like everybody's like in the 4 to 7 range every game. And even Taylor hasn't had the massive yardage game. He's had the big touchdown games, of course. But I'm almost still waiting for Taylor to have the 180 or...
he had the 165 against Denver.
Right, I guess he did. Is that when he ripped off the one and we broke that tackle in the backfield?
Yeah.
And went down that
68-yard touchdown run?
Yeah. I'm thinking when the safety caught him.
Oh, yeah. There were 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a 68-yarder. That's right, yeah. Because he didn't score that game.
So it just, like...
on the ground.
And basically, I say all this to be like, I almost think there's another gear for the offense, as crazy as that sounds, for them to get to. So I know we'll get to the defensive side of the ball in a good amount of Twitter questions, but that's up on the website, 1075thefan.com.
Pittman had 7 catches last week against the Chargers, and I think that's the most
Warren
in a game.
Probably had a 7-catch game or a 6-catch game.
Warren had he had a 7-catch game week 1, so that ties those 2. Yep.
Yeah, but you haven't even had, the 9 for whatever type of game. Some of these, obviously, look at the Chargers last week, or look at Puka, of course, a couple weeks back. It's not just these individuals that are just seemingly, getting hot for a month or so.
Injury updates for the Tennessee Titans. This is from Teron Davenport, covers them for ESPN. This is from interim head coach Mike McCoy. It sounds like L'Jarius Sneed is going to miss some time. Jeffrey Simmons is week to week. And then in terms of practice availability, this is also from Teron. He did not see Tony Pollard, Kevin Zeitler, Calvin Ridley, who missed last week's game with a hamstring injury. He exited the game 2 weeks ago, early in the first quarter with that injury. Or Bryce Oliver, Blake Hance, former Colt Jihad Ward, Arden Key was working off to the side. He's one of their defensive linemen. And then that's about it.
There's some notable names.
Yeah.
Very notable names on that list there. So Jeffrey Simmons is by far their best defensive player. And, yeah, he does sound like he's going to be playing this week. Is this the Joe Bocci Bowl? Are we getting Joe Bocci on the Jumbotron?
And
Joe Bocci tribute video?
And Tavondre Sweat is back, so they have him. So it's not like Sebastian Joseph Ding, another former Colt, right?
Is he? I have no idea.
Or no, who am I thinking of? That went to Notre Dame. That was a lineman that they signed for a 1-year deal.
Isaac Rochelle?
Not Rochelle, was another one of those.
Sheldon Day?
Yes, that's who I was thinking of. Thank you. I knew you would remember as soon as I mentioned Notre Dame, yeah.
Shout out to Warren Central. Yeah, Joe Bocci on their practice squad down there in Tennessee. Okay, let's just start big picture. You are a massive favorite.
Wait, is he allowed to play?
Because
the Colts put him on injured reserve?
I believe they had an injury settlement. I think they waived him a couple weeks back from IR, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't know how that worked.
Sometimes you do see that there. You get whatever little third party in there to deem the injury and go from there. 14-point favorite. It's massive. You look back to, I think it's the second biggest in the NFL this season. You go back to 2000, and the Colts are 10-1 in such games. Eddie Garrison, do you remember the one game that they did not win as a 14-point favorite or more?
I do not. Should I?
Here's my hint. A player that made a tackle for the Colts last week scored a touchdown for the other team in said game.
Scored a touchdown in the game?
Scored a touchdown against the Colts. The first touchdown of the game to help spark the upset.
And this player recorded a tackle for the Colts last
Correct.
Time. Is this player, he has to be, is he a defensive player?
He's got great hair. He is not a defensive player.
Great
veteran.
Hair. Yeah, I don't know. Hit me.
Laquan Treadwell with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Season finale 2021. Win and get in. 15-point favorite, I think the Colts were, and lost that game. I looked at that box score the other day. Man, they were getting drubbed. They had to backdoor their way to a 26 to a 12 or 11 final there. So yeah, that's probably the most people want to hear us talk about that game. But nonetheless, when they've been this big of a favorite, they've usually taken care of business. And really, I mean, there's no way around it. It's, no matter how you look at it, this is the first versus the worst on Sunday. The Colts, I believe, are a plus 92 in the NFL right now. It's the biggest point differential of any team in the league. And the Titans are the worst. They are a minus, I think it's 96. So these teams have played 7 games this season, and 188 points is the difference between the two. So it's been quite the discrepancy. The Titans are last in yards per game, turnovers committed, third down, time of possession, points per game. I mean, obviously the Colts are first in a slew of things. I guess I didn't believe week 3 was a trap game at all. I guess you could call this maybe more of a trap game just based off the schedule, and that, falls a little bit more in the middle of the schedule or, middle of the season. But I would be stunned if the Colts lost this game.
Yeah, you are correct. Plus 92, best in the league. Indianapolis Colts, worst in the league. Tennessee, minus 96, which is coincidentally the number of points they've scored all season.
Look at that. Well, that's easy for them to remember. I think back to week 3, Eddie, some wild decisions from Brian Callahan, if you remember, with kicking field goals and not kicking field goals.
Oh, yeah.
It was just fascinating and obviously horrific for a Titans fan, unbelievable for a Colts fan, watching that unfold. The Colts got on them early a bit. Daniel Jones had one of his highlight plays of the season, I think, under siege on a third down. They blitzed him right up the middle there. Houdini'd out of that, scrambles, extends the drive. At that point, the Colts I don't think they had punted all year. And, you're able to punch that in for 17-3. You also, point to a little bit more of a, later in the game, I think of the Jonathan Taylor run, on the fullback lead play or the ISO power from Tyler Warren and, what Taylor did once he got to the second level there. I thought for the most part, Tennessee actually got a stretch there kind of the middle of the game where Cam Ward actually moved the football pretty well. They just didn't really finish off drives, which I think is something that recent opponents of the Colts have probably said of hey, we're moving it well, but, we just don't finish it off. So those are kind of my memories. I mean, Xavier Howard played in that game. I mean, you got to go back. Personnel has definitely changed. Obviously, the Kenny Moore pick 6 to start the game. I probably should have mentioned there early on there. So those are probably some of my memories. Anything stand out to you, Eddie, thinking back to week 3?
Yeah, the Jonathan Taylor hat trick game.
Yeah,
I mean, you've pretty much hit on everything else.
I thought that one touchdown running on the goal line, I thought it was a great touchdown run as well. Just his ability to kind of power through there and get into the end zone. So For the most part, I think that covers pretty much everything. Mike McCoy is their interim head coach. He did hire, I think he hired Shane Steichen back I think it was 14, 15, something around there, after Shane spent a year with the Cleveland Browns. So that's pretty much it. Drake May sliced and diced him big time last week. 91%, 21 of 23.
That dude's legit, man.
For Drake May. Yes, indeed. I would agree on that. So unless you've got anything else to add, I'm ready to hop into Twitter questions.
I have one thing. Can Jonathan Taylor do it for a third consecutive game against Tennessee? Get in the end zone 3 times?
Boy, so he did that. Was it after the that was after the goal line game, right? After the Denver game last year? He dropped it on the goal line?
Against Tennessee on the December 22nd. I'd have to go back and look.
He was close. Was he 200 in that game? Yeah, I mean, he had a huge game, I remember, the week after that. So I didn't realize he had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I knew he had a big yardage game.
Yep, 218,
ever since
3
you gave me
touchdowns.
those pretzels, I just keep on burping.
Really?
Those burpy pretzels?
No, not that I know of.
They're great. Thank you for that.
No problem. Let's get into the Twitter questions now, starting with Joe and TW. Listen to Monday's pod. Are we being a bit too hard or harsh on the defense and the pass rush? I get the Chargers injury situation and the high draft pick capital in the Colts defensive line. Of course, you want more. That said, we're not factoring in score effects. Colts are up big early, pretty much rushed 4 most of the game, dropping 7 into coverage, and clearly not defending the sticks and trying to avoid the big play. Good example, the last Charger drive where they turned the ball over on downs. Colts were ahead by 14 points. It took like 9 minutes of game clock. The better judge will be in a close game in the fourth quarter when Lou Anarumo sends exotic pressures to defend first down. We haven't seen much of that at all this year. Let me know your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think I'm being too harsh. It was interesting listening to Lou Anarumo on Tuesday. Eddie, he was asked about his pass rush, and I think he's downplayed whatever the questions about it. Shane Steichen, which, for the most part, Shane typically downplays things publicly. He also has gone that, but he mentioned, right now I think we're 7th in the league in sacks, and I think that's very misconstrued, frankly, because to me, the true kind of sack number is sacks per pass attempt. If you're playing a college football schedule with Navy, Army, and Air Force the first 3 games of the season, you're probably not going to be very high in sacks. But if each of those teams throw the ball 5 times against you and you sack them once out of 5, that sack percentage is pretty good. The sacks per pass attempt is pretty good. And right now the Colts are 19th. And so, my issue right now is just how quick the pressure is getting there. To me, I think a lot of it is slow developing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of it is stunt related. I think a lot of it is just effort plays. And, to the question's point, when I hear score effect, I mean, I guess the Chargers game, you could point to that. Now, granted, you didn't have your first sack on Herbert until the fourth quarter. So, when it was still kind of a close game and, even it was more of a back and forth, you didn't have it. And I don't know how that explains the Arizona game. Arizona was back and forth as it could come, and huge drives in the fourth quarter. And again, once, you got to Jacoby at the end of that drive, but that was at the end of it. And to me, those are kind of the effort sacks. I know Rick Venturi said on Monday night on the radio show of, he labels sacks as kind of first wave. And I think he's counted 2 in the last few games here. So I am critical on the pass rush, but I think there's merit behind it. And I also think the investments play into that. You've invested in that group not to be average or below average. You've invested in that group to be elite, and it definitely is not that there. So, right now you've allowed a ton. I think it's 335, I believe, your passing yards per game over the last month. I think it's the second worst 4-game stretch of any team in the league this year. So, to me, that's bad. It's one of the worst in franchise history. And with Buckner getting doubled, too, I think that's the other part that's just bothersome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Chargers wideouts got the best of a depleted Colts DB room, but you can't say the same about like up front. And trust me, if you think like the Colts, they thought they would absolutely undress the Chargers pass rush wise. Like if you think my comments are whatever unfair. Part of me is also relaying what I've heard internally. Like they thought they would absolutely dominate that aspect of the game, and I didn't feel that at all there. So when Herbert's thrown for a career high in passing yards and he's played whatever 90-some games, and Jacoby's having one of his biggest yardage days of his career, and Jacoby's probably started 40, 50 games north of that maybe. That to me is an area that needs to improve.
Jake states, I know a lot of people are hating Shane Steichen for the end of the first half situation against the Chargers, but to me, it looks like he's learned from last year. You're at control, no need for a potential Houston end of first half ending.
Yeah, this was definitely a popular topic that I got, during the game, after the game. Obviously Jake's question here speaks to it. And, it's probably one of my favorite parts of football, honestly, is just kind of when you get in these big time situational periods.
Yeah.
How do you handle it? And I've learned a lot watching Shane, listening to Shane describe these moments on what he likes to do, how he attacks them. This to me is a little different than Denver, whereas, Denver, I thought that definitely they got uber conservative. Here you're up 20-3.
Yeah.
And I think Shane is generally first half or second half. He is, first off, he's anal about every little detail. Look at the sneak of the timeout. But he is anal about giving the opponent the ball back. He's going to try to go to the nth degree not to do that.
Yeah.
And he was adamant in that situation. I don't want the Chargers to double dip.
Right.
I don't want them to kick the field goal 20-6, score on the first touchdown of the third quarter.
Yeah.
Like they did. And now it's 2013. It's game on.
Yeah.
And Abdullah obviously made the big play there. That's why the Nick Cross interception is so big when you look back on it. I mean, that was such a huge play by Cross there. But I'm trying to separate, I wasn't surprised by how Shane handled it.
I was only frustrated with how the drive started, just the lack of urgency a little bit.
Yeah, I could hear a little bit more on
and the willingness to be content with taking 3 instead of trying to.
Yeah, I think that's where the fine line
7.
is, though. I think once you get into field goal range, I kind of like the pedal to the metal. Once you have secured the score, you flip the field, then I'm kind of like, go. I understand. And, teams face this every week. You get into the weird third down right around the 2-minute warning. Do you throw? Do you not throw? How many timeouts does the opponent have? And that's where he got uber conservative, if I'm remembering correctly. That's where he drained a ton of clock.
Yeah.
And,
he really started to drain the clock. I thought there would be go after the first down. They got that first down. That's typically when you see teams go okay, let's go. They run it on first down to see what they can get. They maybe run it again on second down to see what the other team does. They call in timeouts or are they not? And as soon as they get that first down, all right, we're going to go 2-minute full quick huddle, no huddle, whatever, and keep going. I had friends texting me about it, and they were like, why didn't they spike the ball with 6 seconds left, 7 seconds left after that play? I was like, oh, why would you? I mean, you're in field goal range. There's no need to spike the ball and take a shot at the end zone because there's so many things that can go wrong. You could get sacked. You can fumble the ball and getting sacked. You can throw a pick. You lose track of time, and next thing you know, you use up all 6 seconds. So I didn't mind the way that it ended with and how they managed the clock. I just had a problem with how it started.
Shout out to Ryan Bowen. I'm at LA Fitness off of Michigan Road right now. Lance Stevenson in here lifting weights by himself.
Who's Ryan Bowen, by the way?
My older brother.
Okay.
How great is that?
You should be go up there and do the guitar strut.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
or ask him if he's about to go hoop after this.
Text Ryan back. Get a selfie with the man. That man could be the backup point guard for the Pacers tomorrow night.
No kidding.
I'd be curious if the score is a little tighter. How would you have handled it? But again, I want to separate. I wasn't overly surprised, but I also didn't think it was the biggest deal in the world. 20-3, as long as you avoid. And I get it. I mean, Herbert is. I'm glad listener Brian brought that play up on Monday. That play by Zaire Franklin.
Oh yeah.
Was so huge. So I understand it. I don't, in the Shane weird clock management handlings of his career, the Denver one is almost egregious. This one I don't really think comes close to that category.
In Houston last year?
Into the first half.
Yeah, backed up.
Yeah,
that was
again, Richardson versus Jones, I think, are two different situations. Yeah, that was just kind of an eat it, and I think there's probably some quarterback fault there. But to me, Denver this year was particularly lucky.
A guy who could be playing on Sunday that we have name dropped a couple times, JT Tuimoloau. This is Josh and Drew's question. Have you gotten any reasoning as to why he's not playing? Feel like with the pass rushers banged up and playing bad tackles against the Chargers, he would have had a shot.
Yeah, so I think we've gone over the JT Tuimoloau decisions, play, not play, but just go over them one more time. Basically, the Colts have opted for, they've looked at him as their 5th defensive end, and when they decide who dresses week to week, the thought is if we need more defensive tackles, then that means we dress 4 defensive ends. So if we're playing the run teams, we're going to dress more defensive tackles. I believe Eric Johnson is the second is the extra D tackle they draft. And then when they don't, when they're playing the pass teams, they dress Tuimoloau. I think it's been kind of split through the first 7 games or so. He did play 22, I think was the number, 22 snaps on Sunday. Now, again, Ebukam and Lewis got hurt in the game, so I think that contributed. But, as a 3rd defensive end, I mean, hell, if he's that's going to be about 30 snaps coming up on Sunday for him. So that could be a nice little role for him here. And again, I want to make sure that we go over this because I know, so many people want these massive swings for the fences when it comes to trade deadline, and a lot of that is just unrealistic. Eddie, go back to the Colts Super Bowl team.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest reasons why that team sung a different tune from a defensive standpoint in the second half of the season was because of a trade.
Yeah.
And the trade is for Booger McFarland. I mean, Booger is a good player at that. Can we bring the Booger Mobile back? Was there anything better than that?
No, there wasn't.
Gosh, that was electric. I just love that thing. He was a nice player at that point in his career, but this is not some all-pro they were getting. He was a starter in Tampa, but again, this was not a, all of a sudden he is just playing, at an all-pro, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, however you want to label some of these guys here. So, like, that type of infusion, is that out there? Can you do that? That, to me, is, I think, a realistic exploration for the franchise.
By the way, did you see the Jordan Schultz report from earlier today?
I did not, no.
This is about 11 a.m. Eastern. Colts, who have the NFL's best record, are viewed around the league as a team to monitor around the trade deadline with their focus on adding a proven defensive playmaker.
Yeah, I think I said this on Monday, but I will reiterate it again. I think the Colts are heavily looking into things. I do. And I think part of it is because you're in a different position.
Yeah, I mean,
this is different than 5-2 in 2019.
I was about to say, as I just stated, you have the best record in the NFL, and right now, with your schedule, there's a legitimate shot where you can get a bye in the first round, and next you're hosting maybe 1, maybe 2 playoff games.
And you go back to 2019, Eddie, when you're 5-2, so many one possession wins.
Yeah,
and Vinatieri's leg was about ready to fall off, and then Jacoby gets hurt in Pittsburgh, and the bottom kind of falls out. That was a bit of fool's gold. Like, right now I'd be stunned to see it just fall apart like that. But again, the schedule inevitably is a little tougher. I think I pointed that out. Right now, I think if you look the rest of the way, I'm pretty sure every opponent is either in the playoffs or within a game of the playoffs outside of like Houston and, of course, Tennessee on Sunday. But yes, I would be looking into that. And again, I do think there is a lot of real interest there.
Conroy would like to know how much of this year's success could possibly be contributed to the stability in the owner's box. As much as I love Jim Irsay, there were more than a few occasions where things got dicey, and I'm wondering how much he had his hand in decisions Chris Ballard made. I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, so please don't take it that way.
Yeah, I understand the question. I don't know. It seems a tad overblown, if I must be honest here. I mean, did Irsay insert himself into some decisions? Sure. Was he, calling for certain guys to be playing and calling for certain dudes to be drafted in the 3rd round? Or no. I mean, I
don't think he went to that level like his father.
No, I think that is very much overblown. I mean, he sadly passed in what? Was that May? I'm trying to think when it was. It was definitely when the Colts were back in the building. I think it was May. I mean, how much can you really get done? I guess, am I undermining Carly Ursay Gordon at this point? I think Carly's been largely running the show outside of the biggest decisions in the franchise for the last like handful of years, if not more.
Yeah.
I mean, Carly on the sidelines is not new. Carly attending practice is not new. I mean, that's been happening for several years now. I mean, she's been doing the day-to-day thing for a while. Jim Irsay has been away from the franchise outside of Sundays and whatever, important owners meetings for a long, long time here. Jim signing off on some of the big stuff is probably what has been the only thing. I mean, I could listen to an argument of, Jim Irsay's health probably had something to do with Chris Ballard continuing to be the GM. Could you have run a functional GM search? When Jim did the search when Shane Steichen was hired, I think that was largely Chris's operation, handling that. If you're running a GM search, that obviously involves a lot more from an ownership standpoint. So I don't think this is necessarily something that's at play here. Now, as far as Jim Irsay's passing, we were chatting with Zaire Franklin, and I wanted to hang around a little bit longer in the locker room today because I thought he said something that was interesting, because I've heard this a couple times. Like, hey, we're more close knit, or we are close knit. Like however you describe it, and I'm thinking to myself, man, you just hear that so often, and it's like, well, how or why, or like, when did you feel that? Because Zaire mentioned he had kind of felt that, when everybody came back in OTAs, and then he was mentioning to me like, hey, weirdly, like I think all of us going to Jim Irsay's funeral together was like a bit of a, hey, we're all together. He mentioned us coming back at training camp. He just, maybe not as much tangible things you can point to, but just a feeling that there was more of a natural connectedness to this year's team that is more different than maybe previous years. And, for the most part, a lot of the faces are the same. Now, he did point to like Cam Bynum's positive energy has been awesome for their defense. I'm sure he didn't say this, but I'm sure the Daniel Jones steadiness is probably, if nothing else, is much different for the offense to handle. And I think, it would be in a positive element as well. And like new guys were just ready to lead. I know DeForest, I was listening to JJ Watt on Pat McAfee earlier today, and he mentioned that Buckner had shared in their production meetings that like, when the D-line or the defense, when they do their Thursday night dinners, like it's 100% attendance now. And it wasn't always that way. It's like, okay, like think about the D-line. It's pretty much the same dudes, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So like, why, was it just enough? All right, I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of this being, how it's our January goes. Maybe, because we're all, I think inevitably everybody wants, where is the smoking gun? Where was that one thing that just all of a sudden epiphany hit?
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult, but Zaire shed a little bit of light on that.
2 questions left, Kit. If Daniel Jones works out and continues to play well and continue winning games, does that validate or vindicate the Chris Ballard strategy of getting second chance quarterbacks year after year? Does that put a different lens on all of the quarterback signings instead of drafting guys the last few years? It's also ironic that he finally drafts one at the top of the draft and we finally get the second chance guy.
Yeah, vindicate's a strong word. I don't know if I would go down that path. How much does all of a sudden just 1 year, sweep away everything?
Yeah.
Or wipe away all of the decisions. I mean, I think you can go back to, this is not me just laying hindsight 2020. I was pretty adamant right after Luck retired, like, you need to go into that next draft and draft somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And draft somebody high and not draft whatever, Jacob Eason. Like wait that long. Because I just think, again, that's the most ideal way to try and build. I'm not saying that it's the only way to build, but I think it's the best chance to create that window, which we've talked about endlessly. So, yeah, I don't think because you found Daniel Jones on the 5th try of a Band-Aid quarterback or, whatever, bring him in here and try to resurrect a career, however you want to define it. I don't think that necessarily means that, like, you were right the whole time, or that was the pathway that needed to be explored. But certainly from an organizational standpoint, wherever the credit belongs, whether it's Ballard, whether it's Steichen, whether it's both, whether it's somebody else, the change in defensive philosophy, while by no means perfect, I think it's been better, was needed. The change in free agency philosophy, certainly, and the decision on Jones, as believing of that pool of quarterbacks, which, that pool of quarterbacks I don't think was maybe as debated as much as like, the year you had Winston, Mariota, Matt Ryan was the domino that eventually fell with the Deshaun Watson thing. I'm trying to think of who the quarterbacks were. Darnold, Jones, I guess Jameis. There weren't that many pool of QBs on the move this offseason. Rodgers, I guess, should be thrown out there. Credit that, of those guys that they believed in Jones. And they obviously, maybe they had a situation that was attractive to Daniel Jones. Because I think Minnesota offered more, if I'm not mistaken. I would have to go back and double check that. But I think Daniel Jones looked at the opportunity here and said, hey, J.J. McCarthy has not played a game in the NFL. That leash is going to be long. Anthony Richardson has played games in the NFL. That leash is going to be shorter. And I think Shane has a reputation.
Yeah.
Strong one around the league. And I think that very, very helpful as well.
Tell you what, Terp is our final Twitter question. Terp lives in a city that I love dearly.
Okay.
Outside of Indianapolis and outside of Cincinnati.
All right.
Out on the West Coast. Being a Colts fan in the Seattle area, I get the chance to see the Colts maybe once every 4 years, usually 8. And I am looking at getting visitors' sideline field tickets for the Colts game against the Seahawks. Well, Terp, sounds good. Invite me, why don't you? However, Terp states, I've never been to a sporting event in person where the team I was rooting for won. My high school was 0-30 when Terp attended, lost all 3 of the Sonics games, never seen the Mariners win in person, including both games they lost at home during the playoffs this postseason against the Blue Jays. And the one time Terp bought tickets to fly to Indy for the Colts, Andrew Luck retires a week later, and the Colts lose to the Dolphins. Terp would like to know if just stay home or risk going to another game.
Unbelievable. Do you believe in sports jinxes?
I have to at this rate.
Well, after listening to that.
Yeah.
So you think no chance he can go?
I don't know. Like, you've got the chance to see the Colts, and it's not like they're playing, the Jets or some other lowly ranked team, Tennessee or anybody who's bad. Seattle's good, so if they lose to Seattle,
Seattle's good, and also I think that's one of my favorite environments of the entire NFL.
Really?
So, yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go, and the Colts need to get him in the locker room. They need to end this curse. I don't believe in sports jinxes. Should I?
I don't know. It's up to you. I think it depends on the person.
Yeah, I'm just not a believer of this. I think senior.
Wait, so you're not superstitious?
No, I'm not.
I am.
Hey, I think believing in, I think the Colts, when the team bus parks, they should hand him the Ursay guitar, and they should go in there.
I wonder who will get it this week.
It was Grover last week, right?
Was it?
I believe it was. Happy 32nd birthday to Grover Stewart on Monday. You got to go. Go. Yeah. I think seeing your team in a NFC city or just like a non-Indianapolis, I guess seeing them in a road game is probably the easiest way to put it, is awesome. And to see them, at a place, to your point, where you only see them once every 8 years. I remember that Sunday night game last time they were there. Jacoby Brissett under center. I think Colts started Deshaun Bond, Warren Central product at center. Kind of a close game, if I remember correctly, but it was lost. Yeah, you got to go, Terp. You got to go.
As you formulate your prediction,
what do they say when they flip the coin in Friday Night Lights? What does our coach say?
Oh,
he looks over to Winchell, says something about jinxes.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Gosh, I can picture that right now.
Maybe if you look it up as I read off the injury report and figure out your prediction for Sunday's game. Wide receiver Josh Downs, concussion limited. Ashton Dulin, full participant with that chest injury. Here are the list of players that did not participate today. Samson Ebicon with that knee injury fully anticipated. Tyquan Lewis with a groin injury fully anticipated. Kenny Moore, Achilles is the injury of designation, the same one that cost him to miss 3 weeks. Did not participate. Braden Smith was a rest day. Tyler Goodson back to practice, dealing with a groin injury, full participant. Jalen Jones with that hamstring injury was listed as a limited participant. Were you able to look up what they say in Friday Night Lights on the coin flip or figure out what you're going with in terms of your prediction for Colts and Titans?
Did you catch that?
I can always just edit this.
As I'm trying to pull my YouTube up and put that in front of my microphone here. Ain't no curses. That's what he said there. To the legend that is One Chill. It's going to be a rout. 31-6.
31-6, eh?
31-6.
You don't give them a pity touchdown?
Well, maybe they'll make it, and
Joey Slye misses
an extra point. You know? So, yeah, I you can point to a little, I don't know, we'll see what Tennessee's injury report looks like with Tony Pollard not practicing today, but, maybe the run game gets going a little bit and Cam Ward makes some plays in the backyard, but I'd be thoroughly stunned and disappointed, honestly, if it wasn't looking like that. I think you'll get Riley Leonard's first NFL action.
Really? Not Brett Ripien?
No, I believe it is Leonard. I guess we need to double check with Shane, but I believe it is Leonard for another week. What do you got?
So Vegas has the Colts total in terms of their team, 30.5, Tennessee 15.5. So I will go right over that. I will go Colts 34, Titans 10.
The two routes for Matty Garrison and Kevin Bowen here in Week 8. Everybody have a great week, great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday, recapping Colts and Titans.